Freddie, I would like to thank you so much for coming into the Daly Dose today. You have an amazing story. You played college football at Florida State. In fact, you won a national championship there at the end of the 2013 season. You played in the NFL for a really prestigious franchise. I want to get into all that at some point, but you have such an amazing story. You have such an amazing outlook. Just looking at your book, looking at your website, I know people are going to want to hear this story, but first and foremost, I just want to thank you for taking the time to join us today.
And I just want to thank you for having me on your platform. I'm so grateful and humbled to be on your platform today, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Freddie, you have a book that is now out telling your story. The book is called Trials to Triumph. You can find it on his website. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it pretty much anywhere books are sold. But I want to give listeners an idea of what to expect when they go read it. And I kind of want to touch on some of your background. You grew up in the state of Florida, and you grew up with, let's say, very meager means. What was your family life like as a kid?
Yeah, early on, it was tough for us. My father, when I was younger, he was incarcerated for drug trafficking, and then left my mother with the tough task of raising 5 kids on her own. And food was hard to come by. We found ourselves homeless at times, just trying to scrape for food however we could. And wherever we could lay our head to rest, that's what we did. So it was definitely tough early on, but we got through it. And I think that process and just battling through that time in my life, it kind of prepared me for a lot of the obstacles that I would face later on in my life.
Freddie, how many siblings did you have growing up then?
It was 5 of us living with my mom. Okay. My dad had 2 from a prior relationship, but they lived with their mom.
Freddie, knowing what you have done since then, did you get this strength? Did you get this kind of toughness that you had from mom? Who's giving you this? Is this a family member? How are you accomplishing so much coming from that?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say mom is, she has a big role in that. My father, he's back in the picture now. Okay. He's actually a pastor now, and his mental toughness is his thing. He's been able to turn his life around as well. But definitely growing up and seeing my mom battle through so much, I think a lot of it comes from her. Okay.
Freddie, did you play youth sports growing up? I know you're not having much money. Were you able to play youth sports, or are you just kind of playing, pickup when you get the chance?
Well, I didn't play youth sports until my father got out of prison. Then we got a few more people to kind of help us out, because everybody saw me early on, like you said, just playing pickup in the streets. I was always the younger kid that everybody wanted on their team. So they wanted to put me in sports early on, but we didn't have the means for it. And I remember when my father got out of prison, still struggling, wasn't able to get a job, and coaches in the Pop Warner leagues, they knew that we didn't have money, and everybody wanted me on their team, so they paid for me to come play for their teams.
Sure. You end up playing high school football at Bartow High School in Polk County, Florida. Hey, Freddie, you're a pretty good student too. And again, I'm assuming this comes from your background at home. You're excelling in your classes. You're a good student. You're excelling on the football field. It sounds like you're a pretty good basketball player. Again, is this just from your home life? Is this just from your parents? How did you become such a good student on top of the athletics?
My mom, she was always hard on me about school.
Okay.
And just me seeing, I think early on I saw a lot. So just seeing a lot of people, role models and stuff, they didn't truly have a plan after they were done playing. And I told my mom, like, it was always a goal of mine to make it to the NFL. But I told her, I was like, man, it's cool to make it to the league, but I want to make a bigger impact after I'm done playing. That's because if all I'm known as is a football player, then that's not really much.
Sure. And it's amazing that you had that foresight to see that, because so many guys, all the eggs are going in that one basket. It's football or bust. It's incredible that you had the foresight to go, hey, I know I've got to be able to do some other things, and to take your academics as seriously as you did. I'll give you a little background on myself. I was a high school basketball coach for a number of years. So to find a kid like you would have been a dream come true, because we were looking for those kids that worked as hard as they did, on the court or on the field, in the classroom. That's a rare breed that does that. As a junior in high school, you suffered pretty bad injury. What do you remember about breaking your leg? It doesn't sound like this was just a normal break. It sounds like this was pretty serious.
Yeah, I remember when it happened, and I remember everybody in the city giving our coach a huge problem, because I'm the best player on the team.
Sure.
And we're getting blown out by 30, 40 points with 2 minutes left. And I remember it happened. I was running the ball on the opposite side, but the reason I went into the game, I wasn't even supposed to be on the opposite side. I played linebacker.
Right.
And I went in because our running backs, they gave up. They didn't want to go in the game anymore. And I was mad. I was like, man, we're going to end this game the right way. We're going to end this game with some pride.
Sure.
So I just went in and I started running the ball, and that's when the injury happened. And as soon as it happened, I knew it was a break, but I didn't know how bad it was until I got to the doctor and I saw the images of the X-rays, and it was pretty bad. I broke my fibula, broke my ankle, tore the cartilage in my ankle, and I broke a few bones in my foot. And I had to have 2 surgeries for it. And it's crazy. The doctors were telling me I may not ever be able to play again. So I battled through a lot with that injury alone. And what people don't know is that at the time I had no offers. No schools were looking at me. So to have that injury at a time where you don't know if teams are even interested in you, it was tough.
You came back for your senior year. How quick were you able to come back from the injury? That happened your junior year. How quick were you able to come back?
The injury was in November, and I kind of eased back in. I remember our first game, like the whole summer, I'm not really working out with the team. I'm rehabbing, and I'm doing a little bit here and there. And we started the season in August. In the first game, they limited my reps. And my reps were limited until about the 3rd or 4th game of the year. So about the 3rd or 4th game, I was rolling.
Okay. And then you finished your senior year really, really strong. You talked about it before. You eventually did transition to fullback, but you were a linebacker in high school. From what I can read about you, you're a pretty good linebacker. You could stop the run. You could cover a little bit. You were considered a 4-star prospect coming out of high school. You ended up picking Florida State. What other schools were out there that you were interested in?
The only school, it was a lot of schools were after me, but the only school I really wanted to go to was Texas A&M. I wasn't even really considering Florida State, to be honest with you. But my mom, she didn't want me to leave the state of Florida.
Gotcha.
And she would, every time Texas A&M called, she said, I'm not answering the phone. I'm not answering the phone. You're not leaving the state of Florida.
Sure.
Man, I got to start looking into other options.
She didn't want you to leave the state. Mom's not going to let you do that.
Yeah, we've been through so much, and she loves all her kids to be close to her. So I understand it.
Well, and of course, Bartow is the same high school where longtime Florida State assistant, Coach Odell Haggins, as you know, went to school. He was a guy from your high school. Did he have any influence on your decision coming to, Tallahassee?
I mean, with the history there, I would say a little bit, but to be honest, it was just something that I had to go through the process on my own. And once I got there and I got around the program, I fell in love with it. And just knowing that going over there, and it was other people on the staff I had a good relationship with, like Lawrence Sadowski. He had family members that went to our church. So I didn't know it, but him and my dad, they had known each other for years. Oh, wow. So being able to connect with him as well, and knowing that I would have people that would look out for my best interest when I came there, it kind of made my decision easier.
Sure. I got to ask you, you go to Florida State as a linebacker. You have to be thinking about some of the amazing linebackers that come out of school. Sam Cowher, Ernie Sims, Marvin Jones, obviously Derek Brooks. How in the world did they talk you in to changing over to the offensive side and playing fullback, no less?
Man, it's a crazy story. So I come in, I early enroll, and I believe I shocked them early on because they don't expect freshmen to come in and make an impact that early in spring. And I picked up the playbook fast. I've always been the guy that understands the game. And I don't know, that's why I get my edge in my game. So I shocked them in the spring, and going into fall camp, I was competing for a starting job at outside linebacker. A lot of people don't know that. But what happened in the spring is I'm a guy that's like 210, 215. And they kept telling me gain weight, gain weight, gain weight. And I remember my pride just getting in there, and I kept telling myself I want to start as a true freshman. And I remember just eating whatever I could to gain weight. My whole game was based off my speed. And think about the injury I had a year and a half ago. I put on some weight. Yeah, I put on some weight, and my body could not deal with, my leg could not deal with all that weight that my body had on it. I remember being in fall camp, diagnosing plays, seeing them, and I couldn't get there. And I remember Jeremy Pruitt, our defensive coordinator, he was big on me, and he's from Bama. He didn't know anything about me coming out of high school. He was like, man, I want to meet his family. So I knew I was like, okay, all right, I'm making a splash. Now he wants to meet my parents. Right. And I remember one day he came to me in fall camp. He was like, Freddie, what's going on? You're not the same player that you were in spring. Like, is everything all right at home? And it bothered me because I just didn't have an answer. I'd seen everything happening, but I just couldn't get there. But when they made the switch, they kind of told me that I would have an opportunity to go back in spring if I wanted to, but I wore a red shirt that year. So my pride was like, man, I want to play. Right. So let me see what it's like on the offensive side of the ball. And anybody that knows me, my first love was offense. I grew up playing running back. So I told them, I'm like, man, listen, I'll play fullback, but y'all got to give me the ball. Y'all got to give me the ball. Sure.
Otherwise, there's no point in switching over there. You want to be part of it too.
Exactly. And they told me they'd give me the ball. They gave me opportunities. And once I scored that first touchdown, I kind of forgot about the switch. But initially, I did not like it. Fullbacks weren't in the league anymore. I was mad.
Right. I could understand that. That's a big change. As a freshman in 2013, you joined a team stacked with NFL talent. I mean, Cameron Irving, Jameis Winston, Timmy Jernigan, LaMarcus Joyner, Kelvin Benjamin. You guys are loaded. You win the national championship. You guys are rolling. I have to wonder. I mean, you beat the Auburn Tigers in the Rose Bowl. Are you just going, well, this is just how it is every year in college. This is just how things are. Because that's your first time on the field. You get the ultimate success. That had to be like a culture shock.
Yeah, because in high school we sucked. So we never went to the playoffs, and I'm like, dang, this is different. Oh, and wow. Being around a winning team like that, it was definitely a culture shock. And I've always had a championship mindset, a championship mentality, but to be around guys that think the same way that you think, man, it was crazy.
Yeah, I would think it's very, very different. What do you take from Coach Jimbo Fisher? And I know that, he's moved on to another place, but I would imagine he had a pretty big impact on you. What did you learn from Coach Fisher?
Just, I think more so as far as being a man. That's the biggest thing. And a lot of things, he was always hard on me. And I remember sitting down in his office with him, and he was a guy that he used to get mad at me for not speaking up, because I was one of the guys when I talked, everybody shut up and listen. Sure. But he loved me as a player. You go back and look at a lot of his interviews, he brags about me like no one else. But his biggest challenge for me was to turn me into a man. I was at a phase a long time in my career. I was talented. He would always tell me, man, you're the best fullback I ever coached. And anybody that knows his history, he's had a long line of great ones. I know he had Jacob Hester, and that's when fullbacks were going early. Jacob Hester went in the second round. And I remember going to the Senior Bowl, he's telling all the scouts, Jacob Hester can't touch Freddie. But his biggest thing was turning me into a man, because for a long time in my career, I relied on my talent. And that's what he was trying to get me out of. Like, don't get me wrong, I was one of the hardest workers, but I would always have that stint where I get kind of complacent. And he was trying to iron that out of me a little bit. And I definitely appreciate him for it.
You were such a team guy. Being a fullback, that's a sacrifice on your part, going from linebacker to fullback. Fullback, it's not glamour. A lot of times it's dirty work. It's the tough work that a lot of guys don't want to do. That's a huge undertaking for you to sit there and say, hey, I don't care. I'm going to do what's best for the team because I want to get on the field. But you're doing a lot of tough work. You're hitting a lot of guys that a lot of people don't want to hit. That's a grueling job.
Yeah, it was definitely tough, and I don't think people truly understand how difficult the fullback position is, even outside of the the hitting, just how technical it is. You see a lot of guys, they would try to input into those positions, tight ends or other guys, and they just aren't able to do it. And you just have to have a different mindset. And like you said, I'm a team player. Yes, I want to make plays. I want to get the ball, but I want to see my guys eat too. So
Sure.
being able to be a part of their success, that's ultimately what drove me as well. And getting rewarded for it every now and then was all right too.
Right. Gotta feed the fullback every once in a while too. Keep him happy as well. In your sophomore season, you are transitioning into that starting role. You're becoming the guy at fullback. And you also got a running back that joined your team that was pretty special. What do you remember about seeing Dalvin Cook for the first time?
Listen, this is the story. We knew Dalvin was going to be special early. I remember we were in fall camp, and I don't know what happened. I think we had a few guys hurt in the scrimmage, and Dalvin got in with the ones. He was working with the twos and the threes all camp. He got in with the ones and absolutely embarrassed our defense. Absolutely embarrassed them. And we're like, okay, he's going to be legit. He didn't really know the playbook at that time. I remember like after that, we're like, all right, they started trying to work him in, but he still didn't play until he couldn't play the first game against Oklahoma State that year. And I think it bothered him because he knew his talent level, but then they started working him in more and more. And by the middle of the season, shoot, you see what he did. He set the freshman record.
Oh, he's unbelievable. He was absolutely unbelievable. And then he goes into the NFL and he's doing the same exact thing there. It's got to be really rewarding though for you as the fullback to go, hey, if I make this block, it's going. It's exploding. I'm not making a block to try to grind out 3 or 4. He's a home run hitter back there.
Oh yeah, just he's telling me before every play, man, Fred, I'm following you. I'm following you, Fred. He literally in the backfield saying, I'm following you, Fred. Sure. So all I gotta do is my job, and I know we got a guy that is gonna do the rest. Man, it makes it so much easier. And even if it makes you feel at home knowing that, all right, if I miss an assignment, and you don't want to do that, but say it's football, they got guys on scholarship as well. Say a guy knocks you off a block, you got a back that can make a guy miss or make you look good. So playing with a back like that, it definitely ups your game, and it makes things a lot easier.
I got to ask you about another guy that you played with, and he's still in the league, and we're not quite sure what to make of him. He's really, really talented, but I'd love to get your input on Jameis Winston. I know you only had, a little bit of time with him. Is Jameis Winston an NFL quarterback?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I'm going to say this, it may be bold to some people, but this year, Jameis Winston is going to play at the MVP caliber level. I know the videos, everybody trolls his videos and stuff, his workout videos. Jameis is in the best shape of his life. I think the situation that he was in New Orleans was able to humble him a bit, and just being able to sit behind Drew Brees and learn behind him, I think is only going to help. And we're going to see a different Jameis Winston this year. He's definitely an NFL quarterback, and I think that being in that system with Sean Payton is only going to help him.
Yeah, it should. He is no doubt a big-time talent. I think we just want to see him go out on the field. And, hey, when he goes in there, something exciting is going to happen. He's just got to make those more positive plays than the negative plays. You finish out your career at Florida State. You put your name in for the 2017 NFL draft. You go undrafted, but you end up signing with the Chicago Bears. How many teams were looking at you? Were there other teams interested? Was there anyone else out there that you were considering going to? What made you pick Chicago if so?
Yeah, and the draft's crazy, man. I had so many people calling me before the draft,
I can't imagine.
during the draft, telling me that they're going to take me in the 4th or 5th round, and then things didn't go that way. But I believe the Chiefs, the Redskins, and there was 2 other teams, but I ended up signing with the Niners, but not the Niners had Kyle Juszczyk, the highest paid fullback in the league. So I was like, man, I'm not going there. That don't make sense. It would have been good. Like if I would have known that, I would have went to Chicago and got cut. You don't know these things. That would have been the system in San Francisco. As far as my skill set, that would have been the perfect system to get some film and get into a system with another team where I can really be utilized to my full capabilities. So looking back at it now, yeah, but I wasn't going to go in there at that time behind a guy that I knew I was going to have a shot to beat out.
Right, right. I'll say this, as you can see, I'm a Bronco fan. I'm really glad you didn't go to Kansas City because you would have been a pain for us. I know our linebackers couldn't have covered you. I already know that. When you go to Chicago, this isn't some expansion team. This is the Chicago freaking Bears. What was that like walking in on your first day? What is it like going into the Bears franchise?
I mean, it's kind of a mix because part of me like, man, I'm really living my dream. And then the other side of me is like, I expected to be here.
Yeah.
So I'm approaching the game and knowing that I'm going to put the work in, I put the work in. And myself, I put the work in, and I feel like I'm a Pro Bowl caliber player each and every year. So going in, that's how I approached it. And so that's the work I was willing to put in. So I wasn't really shocked by anything. At the end of the day, for me, it was just football. So just getting out there, having fun, and making sure I made the most of my opportunity.
Did you have any kind of a moment when you get there, either with your own teammates or with an opponent, where you were like, wow, welcome to the NFL. This is a different deal. I am facing some big time competition right here.
I think in practice, when one day, because the games, I don't think I had a situation in the game like that, but in practice, one day Akeem Hicks came off a block.
Yeah.
And I had to cover up the play to make it successful. It was a stretch play, and I had to kind of clean them up to make the play successful. And I cleaned him up, and you can't really tell on film, but he absolutely popped me, and I felt that I felt that one the rest of the day.
It's funny, and I only played high school football, but I can remember you hit somebody, your body kind of goes cold, and you get up and walk back to the huddle like, I hope they don't know how bad that hurt, but that hurt.
Oh yeah, they had no clue. You look at it on film, and it's like, all right, but man, I'm hurting on the sideline the rest of the game, but I can't let them know.
No. Don't let on. Never let on. You had always been the type of player that had been like a team captain. You had always been a leader. You had always been that kind of guy. You're working hard in Chicago. You're still being who you are. But in Chicago, you kind of learned that the NFL is a little bit different. There's people, maybe political stuff. There might be some favorites. There might be some different things going on. What'd you experience like that with the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, I think that was definitely my situation. And it was weird for me. I know a lot of guys that's their story. And it was definitely a humbling experience for me because I've always been in situations where best players are going to play. And even if they try to give a guy opportunity to play, like in college, you got these 4 or 5 5 stars that they try to play because they were so highly ranked out of high school. But if a guy's out playing him, all right, we're going to play this other guy. We want to win. So to see that at the next level, they would kind of overlook that a little bit. That was kind of weird for me. Like in your head, you're like, man, do they want to win? And I know for a lot of guys, even vets, they would kind of put me up on game, and so that I wouldn't be shocked schooling the young cats, because it was a shock to a lot of guys.
I would imagine so. And that's got to be really, really difficult because you know who you are. You know how you operate. You know how you deal with things on a day-to-day basis. To now be thrown into this situation where saying, hey, I'm doing the same things I've always done. Why is it not being looked at the same way with this franchise? You're trying to break into an insanely elite group. I mean, these individuals that play professional football in the NFL, Freddie, this is like a really, really tiny fraternity of guys that can even do this. You ended up getting released by the Bears. Dark period in your life, tough thing to overcome, I would think.
Yeah, without a doubt. I remember going to workouts and teams, like you said, I've always been a team player. And I remember going to workouts, and the thing, like, I always thought that I was going to end up on the team right away. I wasn't worried about it. I was like, man, I got cut, but I'll be on the team by the end of the week. And I remember going to workouts, and they were questioning my character. I'm like, man, like, I've always been a team player. Like, what's going on? Yeah. So I don't know what happened for that to become the narrative, but I guess a lot of teams felt like I should have won that job, or I didn't work hard, or whatever the case may be. So that was frustrating for me to see that was a narrative that was floating around.
What do you do post Chicago Bears? Are you working out for other teams? Are you getting other looks? Where does your life go post NFL?
Yeah, I was working out for a few teams, nothing really stuck. And then I went over to the AAF league, the league that folded, ended up folding. I was over there, and I remember them. I had a great camp, and I had a great camp in Chicago, but in the AAF, they gave me an opportunity. Like in Chicago, they're giving me the opportunity to move around a little bit, play tailback. I remember a lot of backs got hurt during camp, and they didn't sign any backs because they knew they had me. But I went to the AAF, and it was kind of the same thing, but they only had like 2 plays for the fullback. So I remember getting to the final cousin, they're like, man, we just don't use fullbacks in this offense. So that was definitely a tough situation for me to see, especially after all I had done in camp. But at that point, I didn't have film in like 2 years, so I knew that I had to start thinking about what was next.
Here's the big question for you. What now? Are you done with football? Are you moving on to something else? Is the football playing days, at least, are those behind you now?
Yeah, at this point, yeah. And this is where, like you said, I was going through a phase of depression, just trying to figure out who I truly was.
Sure.
I was wrapped up into being a football player my whole entire life, and I never had a chance. I never took the time out to figure out what I wanted outside of that. So I remember just going through a phase of depression and just rebelling against the world because I was bitter about not being in the league. I didn't know who I was. And it almost cost my life. I remember going back and I turned to the streets just trying to cope with that pain. And I was just rebelling.
Sure.
And I was talking to a therapist, I believe, a few weeks ago. And it was kind of, because I'm a big on mental health. I'm a big mental health advocate. And it was kind of my way of like being suicidal without being suicidal.
Right.
Like not without putting the gun to my head.
Yeah.
So basically it's like, man, I'm going to live as reckless as I possibly can and whatever happens, happens. And that was my mindset.
How do you get through that? How do you push past that? Right now, we have so many people in this era that are dealing with sadness, dealing with depression, dealing with loss. We've all gone through the difficulties of this global pandemic, which is specifically why I think your story and your book are exactly what people need right now, because you are overcoming this. You are pushing through these difficult things. What was it that did it for you? What was it that got the light to go on for you that changed things?
It was two things I say. Every person that's suicidal, depressed, the thing that keeps them going each and every day, no matter how bad things are, they always have a little bit of hope that they're holding on to. And I had that. And I remember a mentor reaching out to me when I was just trying to figure things out, and he asked me to come speak at a all-star game. I had never spoken before, really didn't do public speaking, but he was like, man, just come speak. And I remember I went out there, wasn't really my thing from what I'm thinking, but at the end of the event, everybody's rushing up to me. I'm thinking that my speech was terrible. And I know it's a lot of things I needed to work on. This is my first speech, but everybody's running up to me, exchanging numbers, getting my information, telling me how I changed their life. And I remember at that moment, like it was a feeling that I never felt when I was playing football. And just going through that week, and I had like a few more speeches lined up. And the more I got into it, I was like, man, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And in hearing your story, reading even some of your book and seeing some of the things that you have out there about your background, I'm telling you right now, you need to go buy this book. You need to go read this story for yourself, because you have found, I believe, what you were meant to do. You might have had to go through some of this stuff to get to this point, but your story is absolutely incredible. And the number of people that you are going to be able to help outweighs all of the bad stuff, because you really, really do have this cool story, this cool background. And I know it probably wasn't fun to go through, but wow, the outlook that you have come through this with is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I truly believe in life, to find your purpose, you got to go through the fire.
Yeah.
And it's a quote now. I love it. I fell in love with it. Monty Williams, Phoenix Suns head coach, says everything you want is on the other side of hard. So I had to go through that ultimately to find my purpose. And at my darkest moment in my life, I found it. So I think it's just perspective, understanding that I'm blessed to be here. And a lot of these situations I put myself into. Yes, life it hasn't been fair, but it's not fair to anyone. What happens, happens. But what are you going to do next ultimately dictates everything else. And I was allowing a small cut to turn into a huge wound just by continuing to dig into it. But I looked myself in the mirror one day. I'm like, man, I'm not going to continue this bleeding. I'm going to stop the bleeding. And I took accountability for everything that happened. I mean, I know that I was brought into this world to achieve something great. And I know that every single thing that I've been through to this point was for a reason. So I'm going to use my story to impact the lives of others out there that are trying to find a way.
Well, there are so many people out there that need that. And it's always interesting to me, like I said, as a former coach, to hear so many lessons that you take into your life from athletics. Last play doesn't matter. Next play is the only thing that matters. And those things are just they get ingrained with you as an athlete. That's just kind of how your brain starts to work. Sometimes you have to get through some of this dark stuff, but I can even see now you have that mentality of, okay, it doesn't matter if I slipped and fell on the last play. Next play is the only one that matters. It's the biggest play of the game. I got to ask you a question, because you've got that team captain mentality. You've got that hard worker mentality. Are you thinking about coaching at all?
It's been so many people ask me, and right now I know that I would love to in the future, but right now I got so many things that I have going on. So not at the moment,
sure.
But when I'm at a place in my life where I can tie everything in together, still do what I'm doing and impact lives as a coach, of course.
Well, and you don't seem like a guy that does things halfway. You're going to do it all the way. And if you're going to coach, that's the only way to do it. I'll tell you that ahead of time. So wait until you have that time, because you're going to go 100% in. That's just how you operate, I think. But you have that mentality of you'd be teaching young kids how to do things the right way, and not to push you into that direction. But there's a lot of young kids that need that. So I could definitely see you going that route. Hey, I have to thank you so much. And I want to give some information out for you. Freddie's primary social media handle, I believe, Struggle Made 105. We'll put that on the website. It's on Twitter and it's on Instagram. You can buy his book, Trials to Triumph, at trialstriumphbook.com. In fact, I believe people can even request a personalized copy over there. Is that correct?
Yeah, without a doubt.
You can also get his book on Amazon. You can get it at Walmart. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, pretty much anywhere books are sold. Freddie, I got to tell you, you've got an amazing story. I want to thank you so much for joining us today on the Daily Dose. You are welcome to come in anytime. You want to come in, you want to talk Florida State, you want to come in, you want to talk whatever you want. I would love to get your thoughts on pretty much anything. And I'll be very honest and very upfront with you. I'm rooting for you because I've read your story. I've looked at it, and just your outlook, the way you've come through this, what you've had to overcome in your life. It's been a pleasure having you on the Daily Dose. And like I said, I'm genuine. I'm cheering for you to do well.
I definitely appreciate you. And as I continue to make an impact, everybody that's invested in me, there's so many people that invested in me along the way. I'm going to continue to pay that forward. There are a lot of people at this point in my life that didn't make it to see this day that I would love to be here with me. Sure. But they lived their whole life sacrificing and giving back to the community. So I'm going to finish the mission that they started, but I have a lot more resources than they had. So we're going to do it on a much larger level. And I'm grateful for everybody that's invested in me and all the people that are believing in my story and continue to push the message out there.